Iska is a dumb but strong swordsman who was commanded to eliminate the princess of the enemy kingdom. However, when he discovers that she is a 10 out of 10 baddie, he falls in love with her and betrays his country to clap her instead. But before all this, in a world where astral power exists, a rare and dangerous force that only a few witches and mages can wield. But instead of being praised, this power ends up terrifying humanity, and the world becomes split into two nations. One is the Empire, which completely bans astral power and treats its users like walking weapons of mass destruction. The other is the nebulous Sovereignty, a place where people with astral abilities can live freely as citizens. This difference in beliefs turns into a 100-year-long war, but there are actually a few who want peace. Like a guy named Iska. A year before the current events, he breaks into a prison and frees a young witch. She recognizes him as a saint disciple, one of the Empire's top warriors, and can't understand why someone like him would help her. But Iska simply gives her some money and tells her to escape. Of course, that noble act lands Iska in prison. The Empire strips away his title, locks him up, and forgets about him. But with the war getting worse and more ridiculous by the day, the Imperial Senate decides to pull him out of jail. They offer him one last chance to redeem himself, not out of mercy, but because they want him to unalive someone they consider a top-tier threat. That target is the Ice Calamity Witch, a pure-blooded, ridiculously powerful astral user from the Sovereignty. She's a descendant of the Grand Witch of Nebulous and is basically the final boss. The Senate agrees to give Iska anything he needs, and he immediately requests for his old team. He later meets with them at a specified location, and the group includes a dead serious guy named Jin, the ever-playful Nenny, and Captain Mismis, their leader who has larger plots than brains. Shortly after, as the group ventures deeper into the forest, their truck is ambushed by astral forces. This shocks Captain Mismis as they're still within the Imperial territory, but Iska knows that something powerful has already broken through. Then, without any warning, a fire blast targets them, but Iska slices through it like it's a warm-up drill, shocking the enemy mages. Several of them appear, and Jin realizes they're wind mages, who are basically sneaky weirdos hiding underground. He instead asks Nene for backup, and she launches powerful missiles from the van. During the chaos, Iska shows great agility and technique to take down one mage after another. But then, out of nowhere, an earth mage named Rin appears and summons a golem. She's shocked that her forces were defeated so quickly by these pathetic-looking losers. She orders her golem to attack, but Iska casually cuts off its arm like he's trimming a hedge. He then tells the others to assist the front while he handles the rest here. After this, the battle begins, and Rin uses her astral abilities to shoot at Iska, but he confidently blocks them like it's nothing. This makes her wonder if he's one of the Saint disciples, but Iska doesn't say a word and keeps battling. He instead wants to know where the Ice Calamity Witch is so that he can finish her off once and for all. As the battle intensifies, Iska begins manhandling Rin and knocks her off her golem. She tries to pull a knife and stab him, but he pins her down and holds her at blade point as if he's fighting against a toddler. At this intense moment, the temperature drops and the battlefield is instantly frozen. The Ice Calamity Witch finally appears, introducing herself through a full-scale blizzard. Her name is Alice Lies, though most just call her Alice. Her sidekick Rin warns her that Iska's a worthy opponent, and his swords can cut through astral powers, but she doesn't seem to care. Alice immediately raises massive walls of ice, but Iska slides through them as if he's at a water park. She then resorts to Plan B and causes a barrage of ice swords to rain on him from above. The move catches Iska off guard, and some of the swords even injure him, but he pushes forward using the full strength of his twin astral blades. As he nears her, she forms an ice shield and blocks his attack, insisting that resistance is useless. But Iska continues pressing forward as he's hell-bent on stopping her. Surprised by his persistence, Alice lets her guard down, allowing him to get behind her. She tries to trap him with vines of ice, but he cuts through them and tells her that she's the one who should step down. Alice refuses, declaring that she will not surrender until the Empire is brought down and the world is united. But before she can strike again, she slips on her own ice, and Iska instinctively catches her. Their eyes meet, and for one awkward second, they finally jolt back to reality when Iska's teammates call out, searching for him. Alice thus gets on her giant bird and retreats, warning that she'll eliminate him the next time. The following day, Alice finds herself thinking about Iska far more than she would like. Hoping to get her mind off the strange encounter, she visits the opera house and sits through a tragic play. The performance moves her deeply, and by the end, she's crying so much that her handkerchief is soaked. A man seated behind her quietly offers his, and she accepts it. But as the lights come on, she realizes that the man is none other than Iska. The previous day, a concerned Captain Mismis pays Iska a visit because he has been very quiet and distant. He reveals that he can't stop thinking about the battle with Alice, and upon hearing this, Mismis decides to bring him to her room. As soon as Iska steps in, he immediately spots some undergarments drying in the corner. She shifts the topic and suggests he attend an opera show to clear his mind. She believes it might help improve his mood and hands him a ticket. The next day, Mismis personally drives him to the venue, but a tired Iska falls asleep and has a dream where his master appears. The guy casually hands him the astral blades and reminds him that they're humanity's last hope to end the war. Later at the opera, Iska hands his handkerchief to the girl crying in front of him, who happens to be Alice. The enraged woman thinks Iska has been stalking her and prepares to attack, but Rin intervenes and reminds her that they're in a neutral zone where fighting is strictly prohibited. It is revealed that this is also the only place where citizens from both kingdoms can live freely without any trouble. After exiting the opera house, Rin and Alice decide to have lunch, and they end up choosing an Italian restaurant, but the waiter tells them that it's fully booked. so they'll have to share a table with a random guy. That lucky person soon arrives, and it turns out to be none other than Iska himself. Alice is left fuming and certainly thinks they're being stalked, but Iska clarifies that he had made this reservation the previous day. With no other options and refusing to appear intimidated, Alice reluctantly agrees to share the table. As they look through the menu, Iska and Alice coincidentally end up ordering the exact same dish. While eating, Alice asks if he likes pasta, and Iska's enthusiasm for creamy sauce makes it pretty clear. Alice begins to see a more human side of him, and they slowly drift into casual conversation. Rin, however, isn't pleased with the developing vibe, and reminds Alice to focus on her meal like a proper noblewoman. That night, Rin tells Alice not to mention anything about Iska to anyone, as he's practically an enemy. She also tells her to throw away Iska's handkerchief, which she's still holding onto. Meanwhile, Iska has another dream, where he's traveling on a train that gets attacked by ugly monsters all of a sudden. He jumps into battle and manages to defeat a few of them, but quickly gets overwhelmed. This is when Alice suddenly appears and uses her astral powers to freeze the monsters. Iska simply watches her in shock, and the next second, he wakes up in real life. The next day, Iska and his team are in the middle of training when a woman named Rishai appears and informs them that she'll be leading their next mission. Turning to Iska, she knows that he's been having trouble sleeping, so she gives him a spare ticket to an art exhibition, as if that's the cure to insomnia. Meanwhile, Alice meets with her mother, the Queen, who is curious about her recent battle with Iska. She explains that he was perhaps a saint disciple, who are regarded as the strongest and the most elite fighters of the Imperial Empire. The Queen then reveals that 100 years ago, their founder battled thousands of Imperial soldiers to protect the Sovereignty Kingdom. She is still alive and in deep hibernation, but her seal is weakening. The Queen suspects that Alice's battle with Iska may have triggered this. Since there are still secrets surrounding the founder's powers, she plans to contact the Astral Institution for an investigation and warns Alice not to fight Iska again until they know more about him. Outside, Rin notices Alice in a tense mood and asks if she's okay. Alice admits that she's been having trouble sleeping and decides to go for a walk, but Rin immediately guesses that she wants to visit the neutral city again and warns her by reminding her of the last encounter with Iska. Alice insists that it won't happen again, especially since she has no plans to attend the opera. However, as soon as Alice enters the city, she bumps into the creep Iska once more. She furiously questions why an Imperial soldier keeps popping up in neutral territory, but he explains that he's here to visit an art exhibition by an artist from the Empire. He then sarcastically asks if it's appropriate for her to admire art from the enemy, but Alice calmly responds that art transcends borders and doesn't belong to any one country. She then heads off on her own, only to get lost in the crowd. Shortly after, Iska finds her wandering and offers to guide her. Although Alice initially refuses, saying they're enemies, she remembers her own words about art knowing no boundaries and agrees. The two enjoy the exhibit together, and afterwards, Alice buys him a drink as a thank you for helping her. But as they sit and chat, Iska falls asleep on her shoulder as if he's just come home from a 12-hour shift. Alice looks at him and quietly reflects that even though they're enemies, she could easily eliminate him right now if she wanted to. The following day, Iska is summoned to the Imperial Senate. The officials praise him for stopping the Ice Calamity Witch and reveal that they're considering making him a saint disciple once again. They explain that this new position would allow him to meet the Emperor, where he could propose the one thing he's always wanted, an end to the war. But since he's still labeled as a pathetic loser and a criminal in the Empire, they say he'll need to earn everyone's trust first by capturing a witch. As the Senate dismisses Iska, his thoughts drift back to Alice. Without wasting time, he calls Captain Mismis and requests permission to skip training so he can visit the neutral city. Mismis agrees but insists on tagging along, as she's bored herself too. Elsewhere, Rin is busy giving Alice a crash course on Iska's secret past. She reveals that he was once the youngest person ever selected to become a saint disciple, but shortly after his promotion, Iska was imprisoned for helping a witch escape. That bit of trivia was apparently scrubbed from all records, making him the Empire's most mysterious good boy. Alice can't understand why anyone would put their own life on the line for a witch, so she asks Rin to dig up information on the girl he helped. After Rin leaves, Alice picks up Iska's handkerchief like it's a souvenir from a forbidden romance. Just then, the Queen arrives and immediately notices Alice's growing interest in her so-called enemy. She reminds her that Iska is still a soldier of the Empire, so he mustn't be trusted at any cost. However, right after the Queen departs, Alice calls Rin and says she wants to return to the neutral city. She hopes to bump into Iska and understand his real motives. The next day, Iska arrives in the neutral city along with Mismis, and just like always, he runs into Alice, who's brought Rin along. Alice jokes that there must be some strange bond between them, since they keep crossing paths in random cities. Mismis wants to know who she is, so Alice introduces herself by her full title, along with her nickname, the Ice Calamity Witch. Upon hearing this, Mismis is left stunned as they're literally trained to hunt witches. They, regardless, walk out of the city and begin talking. Alice wants to know why Iska helped that witch escape, the same incident that led to his imprisonment. He reveals that the witch was just a small girl, and yet, the Empire had her locked up. He couldn't accept that kind of injustice and chose to help her, knowing full well what it would cost him. Alice, still skeptical, doesn't get why someone who would do something so noble is now trying to capture her. Iska explains explains that his goal has always been peace, but since the Empire and sovereignty refused to come to terms, he had no choice but to plan something bold. He believes that taking a purebred like her hostage would force the sovereignty to negotiate. Stunned, Alice believes his intentions are real, but thinks the plan won't work. Even if he captures her, her mother would never agree to negotiate with the Empire. Alice instead offers him a position under her command so they can fight for peace together. But before Iska can respond, the sky cracks open like a large egg, and the Founder appears from a massive rift in the sky. Iska and Mismis are both stunned, realizing that the Grand Witch is alive. Mismis instantly suspects Alice's involvement and calls the whole situation unfair, but the latter denies any connection. Meanwhile, the Founder starts blasting fire attacks like she's been waiting 100 years to do just that. Back in the Sovereignty, the Queen discovers that the Founder's body has vanished and figures out that she has awakened. With this, the Queen believes they finally have the power to win the century-old war. Meanwhile, the Founder attacks Alice too, and Iska can't understand why she'd target her own descendant. Alice guesses that it might be the astral power's automatic defense system triggering it, although even she's unsure. She then tries to tell him about how she's been missing Iska ever since they met. However, the Founder's dramatic entrance ruined everything, just like a drunk uncle showing up uninvited to a wedding. Now furious, Alice decides to fight against the common enemy, alongside Iska. The Founder, realizing Alice might be siding with the Empire, declares her an enemy too. She blasts at Alice, but Rin summons a golem to protect her and ends up getting knocked out. He then tells Mismis to take Rin to a hospital and evacuate the area immediately. After this, Iska draws his swords, and the Founder instantly recognizes them as the Crosswell blades. She wonders if those were what caused her awakening. Iska is stunned and asks how she knows his master, but she says it doesn't matter because he won't be able to stop her anyway. She attacks again, but Iska and Alice manage to counter her easily. An enraged Alice points out that the Founder is no longer a hero in her kingdom, but the witch doesn't care about that, as she just wants to destroy the Empire completely. As the battle intensifies, the Founder grows wings like an evolved Pokemon and fires more blasts. She uses ice and earth magic to create a massive lion monster and hurls it toward them. Alice freezes it midair, but then the Founder uses a powerful wind spell that nearly knocks them out. Fortunately, Iska manages to catch Alice midair before she is blown away. She tells him to let go because his hands are getting hurt, but he smiles like a creep and insists on holding on. He believes that because they're in a neutral city and they have the same goal, they must work together. Upon hearing this, a reinvigorated Alice begins firing ice arrows at the Founder, who blocks them and knocks her away. But Iska pushes forward, cutting through incoming fireballs one by one. Alice builds stairs of ice to help him climb faster, making the Founder nervous. She fires a flaming arrow, but Alice blocks it with an ice shield. Using this opportunity, Iska reaches the Founder and cuts her wings, causing her to collapse to the ground and return to her hibernation. After everything calms down, Alice once again offers Iska a chance to work under her, but he refuses. He instead proposes that they stop being enemies, at least for today, and she agrees to it. The following day, Rija informs Mismis that joint training for their next mission will begin soon. She advises them to enjoy their remaining free time while they still can. Taking the advice seriously, Mismis and the rest of the team head to a casino. Though they are surrounded by games and lights, Mismis feels anxious, wondering if their upcoming mission will be dangerous. The others curiously ask why she wanted to come to a casino of all places. She reveals that her goal is to hit the jackpot and use the winnings to buy a tank, just in case things go south during the mission. Meanwhile, Alice and Rin also arrive at the casino. Rin gives her a quick rundown of the gambling games, and despite Alice not showing much interest, she ends up hitting the jackpot on her very first try. As people surround her in awe, Nini also arrives and congratulates Alice. She mentions that if she had that many coins, she would have bought a tank for their captain. Hearing this, Alice decides to give the jackpot to her, stating she has no need for the money. An excited Nene then returns to her group and tells them how a beautiful blonde girl gave her the jackpot. Iska, upon hearing about a mysterious blonde girl, momentarily wonders if it might be Alice, but quickly shakes it off, thinking it's probably just a coincidence. On her way out, Alice spots a fortune-telling shop. She curiously walks in and asks the fortune teller when and where she will meet a certain boy she's looking for. The shady fortune teller doesn't even do any research and simply says the person is already close by and that their connection cannot be broken. Not long after, Iska also passes by the shop and decides to ask the fortune teller about a girl he's searching for. He is told the exact same thing, that the person he's looking for is nearby. At the Imperial Kingdom headquarters, Risha is summoned by the Senate. They want her to use her friendship with Mismis to redirect her team as reinforcements to a region called Vortex. Risha follows the order and contacts Mismis and her team, telling them to forget about their original mission because she's assigning them a new one. She explains that the war between the Empire and the Sovereignty originally began due to the creation of a vortex caused by an overflow of astral energy. Now, a new vortex is forming, and if the Sovereignty takes control of it, it would spell trouble for the Empire. Therefore, their team is being sent to stop the Sovereignty from claiming it. Meanwhile, Rin also tells Alice about the new vortex. Alice is surprised she hadn't heard anything about it earlier, and Rin explains that the Zoa family deliberately delayed informing them. It is revealed that in the Sovereignty Kingdom, there are 3 royal families, and the astral power forces are always stationed on the border region. which is the Zoa family's jurisdiction. Alice now begins to suspect that they might be planning to keep the vortex for themselves. To confirm her suspicion, she heads to confront the Zoa family directly. She meets the temporary head of the family there named Lord Mask, who looks more like a circus performer. Alice demands to know why the Zoa family didn't report the new vortex sooner. Lord Mask claims that there's no proof that the site is actually a vortex, but he offers to send some troops to investigate. Elsewhere, Mismas and her team have reached the Empire's army camp, where hundreds of soldiers are present. Iska questions if she submitted a report to the higher-ups about what happened with the founder witch in the neutral city. But Mismas says that the high command was upset because she didn't record footage for proof, as if she's a vlogger. Just then, Mismas runs into an old friend named Noro, and the two reunite playfully. It is revealed that they have been friends for a long time. Soon after, a saint disciple named Nameless, who is basically a tin pot robot, and also happens to be their commanding officer, gathers everyone and announces the mission. He explains that they have to reach the vortex before the sovereignty does, and if unable to secure it, they must destroy it. Nameless declares that his only goal is to eliminate all astral-powered forces and warns everyone to stay out of his way. Soon enough, the team begins searching for the vortex. While on the mission, Mismas receives a call from Noro and learns that several units have gone missing. She becomes worried and suspects that witches are behind it, but Noro disagrees, stating that if witches were responsible, they would have left behind some trace. A worried Mismas then decides to return to the base, expecting new orders from Nameless, but he simply instructs them to continue the search and dismisses the missing units, as if dozens of trained soldiers vanishing into thin air is just a paperwork problem for him. Mismas and the others are unhappy with this order, so Iska decides to confront Nameless directly. They had worked together before Iska's imprisonment, so he hopes they can talk. But when he approaches, Nameless pretends not to know him, and then suddenly remembers that Iska is the saint disciple who got jailed for helping a witch. He tries to explain himself, but Nameless coldly tells him that unless he has the proper rank, he has no right to speak to him. Before things escalate, Mismas steps in and says that, as captain of the team, she will speak on Iska's behalf. She then calmly presents their arguments that a rescue team should be sent for the missing people. Later, Iska shares everything with Nene and Jin, saying that Nameless completely brushed him aside as if he were a terms and conditions page. At the same time, Alice also decides to head toward the vortex. Rin believes she's going there in hopes of meeting Iska, but Alice brushes her off, saying that as the princess, it's her duty to safeguard her kingdom. The two eventually arrive at the site of the vortex, where Lord Mask is already present. This makes it clear that the location is indeed a vortex. Alice questions Lord Mask if he was trying to keep the vortex for himself, but he claims that he only found it a while ago and was about to report it to the Queen. However, just as he's trying to appear responsible, his niece Kissing arrives, and suddenly he shifts gears, telling Alice to let him handle defending the vortex. Considering that Mask is just a puny, good-for-nothing guy, Alice wonders whether Kissing is strong enough to fight the Imperial army. Lord Mask responds with confidence that she has better powers than Alice herself. Alice doesn't doubt Kissing's ability, but she still wants to know what the Zoa family really plans to do with the vortex. Mask, with zero hesitation, admits that every astral mage dreams of defeating the Empire's army, as if it's just a childhood ambition like becoming an astronaut. From this, Alice concludes that the Zoa family definitely intends to weaponize the vortex to shift the balance of power in the war. Elsewhere, Miss Mies and her gang must start receiving strange astral readings. She then receives a call confirming that the readings are coming from an astral art, meaning someone from the sovereignty has indeed sneaked in. They realize this infiltrator might also be the one behind the missing units. Eventually, their sensors pick up a signal, and the team gets excited at the thought of being the first to find the vortex. But just as they get closer, Noro's unit appears and suddenly takes Mismas hostage, revealing that she and her squad are witches. At this exact moment, Nameless shows up and starts slicing through Noro's teammates like he's in a training montage. One of them tries to cover Noro's escape with a fire blast, and she makes a break for the vehicle. Nameless is just about to throw his knife when Iska stops him, saving Mismas from a possible knife-to-the-face situation. This allows Noro to escape, and Nameless is furious at Iska for disobeying a commander. But Jin quickly diffuses the tension by saying they already know where Noro went. Nameless then insists that the mission hasn't changed. They still have to find the vortex or destroy it if it ends up in Sovereignty's hands. Back near the vortex, Lord Mask remarks how small it is. He soon learns about Noro and meets her, praising her for capturing Imperial soldiers. Because Mismas had previously met Alice in the neutral city, she blurts out that she recognizes her. But Rin quickly steps in and knocks Mismas out in the nick of time. Alice realizes this might be her best chance to confront Iska again, and asks Noro for the location of the Imperial base. Meanwhile, the Empire starts bombing the Sovereignty base, so Iska and the others sprint into action to save Mismas. They soon find her being dragged by Noro like she's a sack of potatoes. Iska breaks free and deflects all of Noro's attacks without even flinching. Meanwhile, Kissing shows up and stops one of the Empire's missiles just seconds before impact. This makes Iska realize that she's a purebred and seriously powerful. At the Imperial base, Alice arrives to find it abandoned, but Nameless, wearing a camouflage suit, is already there. He tries to ambush her, but Rin senses his presence just in time and takes the hit, getting injured in the process. Seeing Rin wounded makes Alice really angry, and she prepares herself for a battle. Back at the Sovereignty base, Kissing forms massive thorns and launches them at Iska, only to be stunned when he blocks them with ease. She realizes he must be a saint disciple, one of Empire's top warriors. Kissing then responds by regenerating the previously destroyed missile and slams it down toward him like it's a bowling ball. On the other hand, Alice launches her ice shots at Nameless, but he dodges them and throws her own swords back at her. Rin jumps in again, shielding Alice and getting even more battered. This sends the princess into a fit of rage, so she decides it's time to stop holding back. She thus activates her Great Ice Calamity, freezing the entire area and forcing Nameless to escape. Just when Alice breathes a sigh of relief, she sees a sudden explosion near the vortex and gets worried. Kissing, meanwhile, is certain that the nuke finished off Iska, but he emerges from the flames as if he's an invincible cockroach. Annoyed, she hurls yet another attack, but Iska dodges and knocks her out with a light tap of his sword, like he's just closing the book on an annoying chapter. In the aftermath, Iska and Mismis decide to take Kissing back to base. But just as they start moving, Lord Mask appears out of nowhere and stabs Iska from behind. He then kicks Mismis into the vortex before escaping with Kissing. Iska, who's still reeling from the stab, immediately jumps in after her. Surprisingly, Alice also arrives at the scene and jumps inside the vortex to rescue them. She offers to help him escape, but only if he promises to fight her later. Iska accepts and immediately grabs her hand. Just as Alice begins to pull them out, the astral energy inside surges, causing the vortex to explode and throw them out in different directions. Shortly after, Jin and Nenny find their teammates and promptly take them away in their van. Several days pass, and Rin notices that Alice can't stop thinking about Iska. She decides to help by suggesting that they arrange a proper fight between them, hoping that once Alice confronts him, she might finally move on. Elsewhere, a distraught Mismis falls to her knees and apologizes to her teammates, believing that if she hadn't been kidnapped by Noro, none of them would have had to face such trouble. But Iska reassures her that everything turned out fine and there's no need to dwell on it. Soon, Risha shows up and drops a bombshell. They'll have to infiltrate the Sovereignty to capture Queen Nebulous herself. The others are stunned, as sneaking into the Sovereignty is nearly impossible. Like winning an argument with your girlfriend. They ask if Risha has any kind of plan, and she promises to reveal it once all the preparations are made. Meanwhile, in the neutral city, it's revealed that Alice has been searching for Iska for 3 days straight. Rin, who is starting to lose faith, thinks Iska must have died in the vortex explosion, but Alice refuses to believe that and confidently insists that he's still alive. She then tells Rin to search in another direction while she continues on her own. As Rin watches her go, she thinks about Alice's position in the royal family. As a direct heir to the throne, Alice should be spending time building alliances and support among nobles instead of searching endlessly for one imperial soldier. Hence, Rin decides to take drastic measures to erase Iska from Alice's mind. At the imperial base, Mismis suddenly feels an odd tingling in her shoulder. She takes off her jacket to look, only to find a glowing astral crest on her shoulder, as if she got a new tattoo. Iska steps forward to calm her and gently asks if she has any idea how she got it. Mismis is just as confused as everyone else, but Jin theorizes that it must have happened when she fell into the vortex. He believes the explosion may have been caused by an astral spirit, and during that moment, it somehow possessed Mismis. Jin suggests they can confirm whether the crest is real by showing it to the Research Institute, but Nene warns that if the Empire finds out, they might execute her for being a witch. Iska then presents Mismis with two options. She can either surrender and they'll try to get her sentence reduced, or she can hide the crest and rely on the team's support to stay safe. Mismis fears that if she's caught, everyone will be punished, but the others insist that they'll follow her decision because they're a team. Hearing this, Mismis breaks down in tears and says she wants to remain as their captain, especially now that they've finally come back together as a real unit. On the other side, Alice finishes another long day of searching and still hasn't found Iska, simply because he hasn't shown up in the city yet. Still, she remains determined to keep returning every day until she sees him again. Meanwhile, Iska meets with Jin and discusses how they might keep Mismis's crest hidden, since the Saint Disciple could easily detect it. Jin worries that if the crest becomes unstable or triggers a reaction, she might be declared a traitor just like Noro. The next day, Iska brings Mismis to the neutral city to relax. As he watches the peaceful citizens around them, Mismis walks off to grab drinks for them. Shortly after, Alice arrives at the spot looking for her Romeo and eventually finds him sitting on the bench. She asks what he's doing here, and Iska replies that things in his unit aren't going well and he's been thinking about that. Alice wants to know more, but Iska refuses to explain, reminding her that they're still enemies. As they talk, Alice leans in a bit too close, almost as if his hormones are attracting her. But this is when Rin appears and sees them, prompting Alice to immediately jump up and try to explain that it wasn't what it looked like. Although annoyed, Rin gives Alice a drink and offers one to Iska too, calling it a gift from her. But as soon as he drinks it, his head starts to feel heavy, and he collapses. Rin then admits that she had spiked the drink, assuming he would never drink anything they gave him. But now that he has, he'll believe that the Sovereignty tried to poison him. That way, he will finally see Alice as a real enemy and stop talking to her. Alice is clearly upset and tells Rin she didn't appreciate what she did, but the unmoved assistant suggests they take Iska into custody. At this moment, Mismis returns and demands an explanation as to what's happening. When the two start walking away with the hostage, she runs after them, and her astral crest starts emitting energy. This shocks Alice, so she immediately freezes Mismis's legs before leaving with Rin and an unconscious Iska. A few hours later, Risha learns what happened and immediately reports to the Emperor that Iska has been kidnapped by the Ice Calamity Witch. As they travel back, Alice tells Rin that bringing Iska into the central region of the sovereignty might not be a good idea, so she decides they'll take him to a nearby city named Alcatraz instead. Meanwhile, the unfazed Senate instructs her to continue the original plan, acting as if losing their top soldier is not a problem at all. But Risha informs them that the Emperor himself has ordered her to hold off. When the Senate asks what her new plan is, she tells them that Iska has been taken to Alcatraz, which happens to be the same place where a barbaric demon named Salinger is imprisoned. Risha explains that if they release him now, they might be able to use him against the Sovereignty Queen, as he once stood against the former queen and was imprisoned for it. Risha then meets with Mismis and the rest of the team, and reveals that they plan to enter the sovereignty. She brings out a device that emits astral energy and applies it to Net, creating a glowing astral crest on her hand. She explains that this will temporarily make them witches or mages, and that the effect will last only 1 week. Jin immediately grabs the device and uses it on Mismis to cover up her real crest. Risha then instructs them to head directly to Alcatraz to search for Iska, while the other units will use this diversion to attempt an infiltration of the palace and capture the queen. Meanwhile, Alice, Iska, and Rin arrive in Alcatraz. Curious whether he's still asleep, Alice begins poking Iska, but he ends up falling on top of her plots, making her really uncomfortable. Shortly after, he wakes up and Rin is left stunned, since the sleeping pill she gave him should have kept him knocked out until the next day. Iska is disappointed that they've kidnapped him, but the girls insist it's his fault for consuming the drink. They soon arrive at a hotel where Rin reminds Iska that he's now deep inside sovereignty territory, so calling for help won't do him any good. Once inside, Rin tells Alice she has booked another room, and suggests they chain Iska for security. But Alice doesn't like the idea, as she really cares about her PR and doesn't want people to think she mistreats her prisoners. Rin says she can't let Alice stay in the same room with him either, so she's already booked a luxury suite where Alice can rest while she watches over Iska herself. Meanwhile, Mismis and the rest of the team successfully enter the sovereignty. Risha contacts them and explains that Alcatraz is actually a private sector where the sovereignty accepts and holds criminals from other countries in exchange for money. Jin asks whether all criminals here are astral mages, and Risha starts listing dangerous inmates. She is about to mention Salinger, but stops herself, not wanting to reveal her full plan just yet. Shortly after, the group meets Risha in person, and she directs them towards Olalukan prison, as that's likely where Iska is being held. Back at the hotel, Rin takes a knife and deliberately cuts her own hand. The deranged girl now plans on framing Iska for attacking her, so that Alice sees him as a dangerous imperial soldier. Meanwhile, Alice gets hungry and walks over to their room to ask about dinner. But as she enters, she sees Rin trying to stab Iska and immediately stops her. On the other side, Jin, Mismis, and Nena sneak into the prison, but Risha has gone her separate way. This makes Mismis question whether Iska is even here, and says that a saint disciple like Risha wouldn't risk coming here unless she was sure. Back at the hotel, Alice locks herself to Iska with a chain, certain that he can't drag her heavy weight. She then declares that she'll be watching over him and tells Rin to leave. Shortly after, a worried Iska starts asking the important questions. He wonders how they'll use the bathroom, and this immediately sends Alice into panic mode. Since the keys are with Rin, she shouts for her as she urgently needs to freshen up. After the two are separated, Alice rushes to take a shower while Iska and Rin engage in an awkward conversation. The poor guy asks what they'll do with him, and the evil girl responds that if it were up to her, she'd keep him locked away in this hotel forever. Soon, Alice walks out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, completely forgetting that Iska is still there. Seeing him, she quickly turns away, but Iska ends up noticing the astral crest on her back. Alice asks what he thinks of it, given that the Empire views crests as curses. Iska replies that his captain also became a witch, but he still respects her. Alice then asks what he sees her as apart from a witch, and Iska replies, a rival on the battlefield. Upon hearing this, Alice becomes so excited that she accidentally drops her towel. She says she's glad he sees her as an equal and not someone special. A flustered Iska tells her to put on something first, and Alice hurriedly covers herself with a towel. But then she creepily says that since he saw her body, she should get to see his in return. Meanwhile, Risha infiltrates the heavily guarded sections of the prison and finally meets with the notorious beast, Salinger. He's just casually relaxing on a bench, as if he's about to get a massage, and Risha comments on how young he is despite being locked up 30 years ago. She wonders if he's the real Salinger, but he takes it as an insult and warns her to get to the point. Risha then reveals that she plans to break him out of jail so that he can help capture the queen. The demon immediately accepts, not because he wants revenge, but because he's just bored of sitting behind bars and wants to step out and become king now. Back at the hotel, Iska has a tough time falling asleep, and he just enjoys the view like he's at a vacation resort. But Alice ruins the mood by explaining that this area actually sits above a massive underground prison full of dangerous criminals. She then goes on to reveal that the country's most dangerous criminal, the demon Salinger, is also held up in one of the underground cells. That surprises Iska, and he asks why she refers to him as a demon. Alice explains that he once attacked the former queen, and has inexplicable powers that can destroy the kingdom in an instant. Just then, Rin enters with breaking news that someone has infiltrated the sovereignty territory. She adds that multiple suspicious groups have been spotted across 12 provinces, and Alcatraz is one of them. Elsewhere, Mizmis and her group have infiltrated the prison, but it starts blaring all of a sudden. This makes the captain panic as she fears they've been caught, but Jin points out that it's for something else. His fears are confirmed when a huge explosion rocks the tower, indicating that a notorious criminal has escaped. Isha then contacts the group and reports that the blast was caused by an astral spirit, creating a hole in the top of the tower. Worried, Mizmis immediately asks about Iska, but the smug Rizia says he's not here. She says that a demon is now on the loose, wreaking havoc, so they should all abort the mission. Once the call ends, Nene suspects that they were used as bait, and while Jin knows it's true, he suggests they focus on how to escape first. Meanwhile, Rin finds out about Salinger's prison break and reports it to Alice. This news shocks Alice, who quickly calls for emergency forces. She believes Salinger might try to steal the Queen's astral crest, so she decides to stop him herself. Rin tries to talk her out of it, but Alice has already made up her mind. Apparently, she's the only person in the entire country who can whoop the notorious demon's backside. Before leaving, Alice meets with Iska and tells him nothing about her plan, since they're still enemies. She almost asks for help, but changes her mind and instead hands him a handkerchief, replacing the one she previously gave. At the prison, the guards are closing in and Jin realizes that there are too many of them. He thus thinks of a plan to distract them so the others can launch an attack. However, Mismi insists on being the decoy and runs in front of the guards while flaunting her astral crest. They soon corner her and are about to finish her off, but Jin and Nene zap them with their guns in the nick of time. Back at the hotel, his phone starts ringing, and he realizes that Alice forgot to hide it. He quickly answers and finds Mizmis on the call, asking where he is. Iska reveals that he's chilling in a hotel room alone, and that the Ice Witch is heading towards the prison. To his utter shock, Mizmis reveals that they're already inside the same prison. He asks what they're doing there, but Jin jumps on the call and urges him to meet them as soon as possible. Says he can't escape because he's still in handcuffs, but then he suddenly remembers the handkerchief Alice gave him. He looks inside it and finds the keys to his cuffs in a really romantic fashion. Meanwhile, Alice and Rin arrive near the prison and are welcomed by a huge ball of fire, but they manage to escape just in time. The place is in flames. Alice uses her ice powers to freeze it all and takes command of the guards. Iska, on the other hand, reunites with his team and apologizes for getting kidnapped by a bunch of beautiful girls. Mizmis says they must escape, but Iska has other plans in mind. He takes back his weapons and asks everyone to wait for him at the hotel while he takes care of some unfinished business. Inside the destroyed prison, Rin confronts Salinger, who's sitting on top of the debris like it's his throne. She calls him a traitor of the nation and reminds him that he tried to steal the Queen's astral spirit. However, an unconcerned Salinger claims that he's the king and that collecting spirits as taxes is his royal right. He says he'll become even more powerful than a king by gathering all the spirits. A furious Rin shouts that he's nothing more than a criminal and throws her weapon, but Salinger blocks them easily using a wind astral spirit. He doesn't just have one spirit, he has several, probably stolen from their original users. A stunned Rin tries everything she can. She summons her golem and tries to bind him with rocks, but he easily overpowers her and throws her aside. As if that wasn't enough, Salinger brags about having a pure-breed earth astral spirit, saying hers is nothing in comparison. That angers Rin, who realizes his power came from stealing the royal bloodline spirits. She declares that he'll face severe punishment, but Salinger tells her to shut up as he's tired of her barking. He mocks the royal family for being too soft to unleash their full power. Then he hits Rin with an invisible blast, sending her crashing down, bleeding. He complains that this fight is no fun, and it's like he's beating up a puppy. As he moves in for the final blow, Iska suddenly arrives and slices his attack in half. Salinger is stunned that someone could block his invisible strike that easily, but now the real battle is just getting started. Iska asks Rin if this is the guy who's considered Alice's enemy. Once she confirms it, Iska agrees to fight Salinger, but only on the condition that Rin won't stop him or his friends from returning to the Empire. She doesn't exactly say yes, but her silence is enough for Iska to begin the battle. Salinger, on the other hand, is confused as to why a soldier from the Empire is trying to stop him in the first place. Meanwhile, a man in a fancy suit named Schwartz, who happens to be the butler of Alice's younger sister Sisbel, informs her that Salinger has escaped from prison. Alice is currently in Alcatraz and in command of operations there. He suspects it's no coincidence that Salinger escaped from prison the moment Alice showed up. At the battlefield, Salinger is shocked because his earlier attack was intercepted by Iska. He was under the impression that sound-based attacks are invisible and shouldn't be possible to slice. However, Iska gives him a quick lesson that while the attack may be invisible, the flames around them flicker when he moves, allowing him to sense the trajectory. Rin, who's still on the ground, warns him to stop talking and stay alert, explaining that Salinger's main ability is water reflection, which lets him capture other astral spirits. The beast then uses his sound attack again, but Iska dodges it like it's nothing. This ends up impressing the beast, and he asks how Iska did it, but the boy replies that it was just instinct. Then, in the split of a second, he gets close to Salinger, catching him off guard. Iska swings his sword at him, but Salinger defends himself with a wind barrier. He then reacts by collapsing the ground beneath Iska, but it doesn't stop him. Iska still reaches him and throws another attack, forcing Salinger to back off. This time, he uses an earth spirit to blast the floor with lava, but Rin warns Iska in time, and he manages to dodge. She tells him they have no idea how many more powers Salinger is hiding, but somehow they must push him to his limits. Hearing this, Salinger laughs and says they haven't seen anything yet. According to him, the true power of an astral spirit is far greater than they imagine. Elsewhere, Nameless ambushes Alice from behind, but she senses him and blocks the attack with her ice. She asks whether he helped Salinger escape, but he dodges the question, saying what matters is that Salinger is now free and turning the entire prison into a flaming nightmare. Alice says she'll stop him and launches an ice sword strike, but Nameless backs away, saying his job is done, and disappears. Back in the fight, Salinger combines ice and fire to form a deadly blast and launches it at Iska. Our hero slices it again, but it turns out to be a trap, as the powers only get stronger and strike him brutally. Watching this unfold, Rin realizes the real reason Salinger steals astral spirits might be so he can combine them into powerful hybrid attacks. But Salinger reveals he has even bigger ambitions, as his goal is to merge humans with astral spirits. Only one person has achieved that level so far, and that's the founder of Nebulous. Rin prepares to attack again, but Salinger mocks her by saying that he has already finished off Iska, so eliminating her would be as easy as unplugging a router. However, Rin boldly says that Iska will return, as he's the only man Alice has considered her rival, and the one who defeated the founder herself. Salinger doesn't believe Rin and prepares to attack, but just then, Iska suddenly appears from the rubble. A stunned Salinger asks how he survived the impossible blast, to which Iska reveals that he used ice to shield himself. Salinger, now visibly annoyed, starts using air and lightning powers to create a massive sandstorm. He hurls it towards Iska, but Rin quickly summons a golem with her earth spirit to protect him. Enraged at her continued interference, Salinger decides to get rid of her first and hurls a powerful spell towards her. But just when it seems all hope is lost, Alice arrives just in time and shields her assistant using her ice magic. Taking advantage of this opportunity, a determined Iska charges towards Salinger, who creates new swords to fight back. But Iska easily slices them apart as if he's cutting onions with a samurai sword. Realizing that he has been defeated, Salinger goes to the edge of the tower and jumps into the abyss, but not before announcing that he'll soon return to continue his evil plans. In the aftermath of the incident, Rin does a quick survey of the damage and learns that all the other escaped prisoners have been caught. The Imperial soldiers have also retreated, bringing a great sense of relief to Alice. Elsewhere, it's revealed that the suited person who fought Alice was actually Risha. She meets with the real Nameless and complains that she never wants to wear that pathetic piece of a suit again. Nameless responds that she doesn't have to, as two special units have infiltrated the sovereignty's central provinces, meaning they now have a clear view of the Queen's palace. He adds that the Senate will be pleased, and it's time to inform the Emperor. On the other hand, Iska regroups with his team, and they finally manage to leave the sovereignty. He's now determined to find a solution for his captain's astral crest, which is still a threat. Later that night, Alice praises Rin for fighting bravely against the monster, but the assistant claims she couldn't have done it without Iska's help. Hearing his name, Alice drifts into her happy place and starts smiling, but Rin reminds her that he's still the enemy. She nonetheless admits that he saved her life and is an honorable fighter. Meanwhile, it turns out Sizbel has been spying on them using her magical powers. She realizes that they're referring to Iska, the same person who freed her from prison a year ago. Elsewhere, Nameless and Risha meet the mysterious Emperor in person, and he turns out to be just a young man with a tail. Risha tries to talk about Salinger's situation, but the Emperor shows no interest and simply yawns. He instead says that for the first time in 100 years, something interesting is really happening, as an astral princess has fallen in love with an Imperial soldier. Meanwhile, Sizbel is summoned by their mother, the Queen, who orders her to travel to Alsamira, an independent nation that has yet to officially declare neutrality. Rumors suggest that the country might be allied with the Empire, and the Queen wants Sizbel to confirm whether those rumors are true. At the training base in the Empire, Iska and his team clear their tests, but they're informed that they'll be checked again after a week to ensure that their temporary astral crest is completely gone. This leaves them worried, as it could expose Mismis's condition. Just then, a member of the medical team named Meki arrives while holding Risha's ears. The group becomes anxious, fearing they've found out about Mismis's astral crest. But Meki instead commends them for working hard through back-to-back dangerous missions, warning that if the general public discovers the truth, they may start questioning the headquarters leadership. She thus announces that the team will have to take a long 60-day break with 0 missions or responsibilities. After the two leave, Mismis expresses her joy as the delays mean the next Astral Crest checkup will be postponed. They now have enough time to find a solution for it. The rest of the team agrees, and they decide to leave the Empire for their vacation. Alice, on the other hand, has been handed administrative work, which includes going through a heap of documents. She says she's bored and wants some action, but Rin reminds her that she already did that a few days ago. Just then, they hear music and celebration coming from outside, signaling someone's return. Alice guesses it's probably her elder sister, who has returned early to participate in the upcoming election. She then continues to say that she needs a vacation, away from the boring politics, but Rin reveals that Sizbel is already leaving on the Queen's orders, so Alice has no choice but to stay. Elsewhere, we see Elatir with Lord Mask, who actually wears masks even when he's at home. She expresses suspicion that someone close to them might be working with the Empire. Mask finds her theory interesting and asks if she has any evidence, but her admits she isn't sure yet and doesn't know what to do in such a complicated situation. At the independent nation of Alsamira, Iska and his team have also arrived to enjoy their vacation. Known for its luxurious resorts and hotels, the nation thrives on tourism and makes a fortune from visitors. The group heads to the beach where Mismis and Nene start a 100-meter race. By evening, Mismis is completely drunk and exhausted, so Jin offers to carry her like a donkey. Nene then tells him to take Mismis to the hotel while she and Iska go to the supermarket to pick up dinner. Shortly after, Nene suddenly gets an urge to pee due to all that drinking and rushes to a bathroom. This leaves Iska alone, and as fate would have it, he accidentally bumps into Sizbel. He asks if she's okay, and she replies that she got lost while reading a map. But as the two stare for a moment, they suddenly recognize each other. Iska realizes that she's the same girl he once helped escape from prison. Just then, Nene returns and thanks Iska for waiting. But when he turns around, the mysterious girl is already gone. Meanwhile, Sizbel runs off and wonders to herself if that really was Saint Disciple Iska and what he was doing in Alsamira. Her butler finally catches up, panting heavily, and begs her to go easy on him, because his bones aren't what they used to be. Sizbel tells him she's found her dream warrior, and has something important to discuss with him. Back at the palace, Alice is drained from all the paperwork, but Rin tells her there's a meeting tomorrow in the Queen's Hall where she'll have to meet all the guests in person. This really annoys Alice as she only wants to go on a vacation and wear her royal swimsuit. Just then, the Queen arrives and asks Alice to come with her. Meanwhile, Sizbel returns to the spot where she met Iska and uses her ability to trace his movements after their encounter. Her butler spots Iska and asks if she seriously plans to ask him for help, and Sizbel firmly says yes. Back at the palace, Alice asks her mother where they're going. The queen says she has the key to Sizbel's room and wants to search it, since the girl has been acting strangely lately. She tells Alice that both of them are her daughters, and she sees them as princesses. But the public doesn't have high expectations from Sizbel, which makes it unlikely that she'll win the election. Rin then asks if the queen sent Sizbel to Alsamira just to search her room, but the queen denies that, saying she sent her there because she's capable, and also because it's a convenient opportunity to look through her things. Soon after, they open the door and start searching through every corner like creeps. Alice soon comes across a newspaper which contains an article about Iska's arrest. It specifically references the same incident when he had helped someone escape. This leaves Alice shocked, and she wonders how her nerd sister knows him. Back in Alsamira, Sizbel and her butler reach the hotel where Iska is staying. She successfully sneaks into Iska's room, only to be tackled to the ground by him. He initially thinks she's an assassin, but quickly recognizes her as the girl he saved a year ago. Now that they're done with introductions, Sizbel looks him in the eyes and asks if he will come to the sovereignty with her. She apologizes for sneaking into his room, but awkwardly points out that they can't just keep lying on the floor like this. Meanwhile, Alice is still wondering how her sister even knows Iska. She suspects that Sizbel might have seen them together in the neutral city using her astral spirit, but Rin points out that Sizbel can only see things within a 300-meter radius. This means that the girl might have overheard their conversation here in the palace. Back in the room, Sizbel reveals that after being rescued by Iska last year, she never told anyone about him being an Imperial soldier. So she's here to thank him properly by gifting him a bracelet. But Iska refuses, as he's certainly not a gold digger and has bigger goals. Sizbel claims that she unintentionally ruined his status and respect, and now wants to help him restore what he lost. But to do that, she needs him to come with her to the sovereignty. When Iska asks who she is, she responds that she works in the royal palace as a servant. He still doesn't understand why she needs his help specifically, to which Sizbel responds that she can't trust anyone right now. She then starts to get emotional and says she will return again to meet him. Then she quietly leaves, though Iska notices she left the bracelet behind. On the other side, Rin tells the queen that they didn't find anything strange in Sizbel's room, but she has an idea. She suggests that Lady Alice be sent on a long-distance solo trip to the same country where Sizbel is staying so that she can talk to her sister directly. That way, Sizbel might feel comfortable enough to open up about whatever's going on. The queen likes the suggestion and immediately gives the trip a green light. Meanwhile, the Imperial Senate learns that the queen's daughter, the pure-blood witch Sizbel, is currently in Alsamira. They realize this is the perfect chance to capture her, since catching a pureblood is their primary objective. To do that, they even activate a barbaric witch-hunting weapon, known as the Object. At the palace, Elatir meets up with Lord Mask and drops a major bombshell. She reveals that the ones in contact with the Empire are her own sisters. Mask is shocked, and warns her that saying something like this could cause a lot of trouble for the Liu family. But Elatir makes it clear that the future of the sovereignty is more important than some stupid political election. She adds that if Alice and Sizbel are really betraying their country, then it's her duty to stop them. But because they are her sisters, she admits she may not be able to go through with it. Lord Mask tells her not to worry and offers to handle the situation himself. Later, a bus heads through the desert, carrying Alice and a bunch of random passengers toward Alsamira. She feels uneasy because it's the first time she has traveled alone in years. Suddenly, the bus stops because of huge footprints on the road, and Alice gets out to inspect. After looking closely, she realizes the footprints aren't those of a T-Rex but were left by a machine because she also smells machine oil. This quickly makes it clear that the object has reached Alsamira. Elsewhere, Iska and his team have already checked out of the expensive hotel. Mismis is exhausted and complains that they could have just stayed at their previous place, but Iska says the hotel was too pricey. In truth, he's trying to avoid putting his team at risk because of Sizbel. Meanwhile, Mismis's astral crest reactivates again, and she freaks out. knowing this might expose her feelings. But Jin tells her not to worry since there's still time before their vacation ends. He also explains that a special sticker is found in the market which hides such astral signs. The witch Noro used one of them when she was undercover in the Empire. Upon hearing this, Mismus becomes hopeful again, and they plan to look for it the next morning. They soon reach the new hotel, and Iska heads out to exchange some currency, but he soon runs into Sizbel, who's been stalking him like Jack the Ripper. When Iska asks how she found him again, she reveals that her astral crest allows her to see the past like a video, which helped her track him down. Iska is impressed, but also questions if it's wise for her to reveal such a powerful ability to an Imperial soldier. Sizbel says she just wanted to be honest with him, but also admits she lied yesterday. She's not just a servant, but a princess and Alice's sister. Iska is stunned and asks why a royal lady like her still needs his help. Sizbel explains that someone is targeting and that the person is a descendant of the founder. Their plan isn't to rule the sovereignty, but to destroy it completely. If the queen dies, it will trigger an all-out war with the Empire, and both countries will be devastated. Sizbel then gets emotional and says this is why she needs his help. Elsewhere, Alice arrives in Alsamira and runs into Schwartz, who tells her that Sizbel is missing and didn't inform him before leaving. Meanwhile, Iska tells Sizbel that he also doesn't want a war between the Empire and the sovereignty, but he still can't go with her. Sizbel is shocked and insists that if something happens to the queen, no one will be able to prevent war. But Iska says that stopping the war isn't his only goal. His true mission is to end the century-long tension between the two nations. When Sizbel asks how he plans to do that, Iska says through peace talks. But she tells him that the people of her country would rather date a cockroach than forgive the Empire. Iska agrees that it won't be easy, but says someone from the sovereignty also shares his dream of peace. Before he can reveal Alice's name, Lord Mask suddenly shows up with his soldiers. He accuses Sizbel of meeting an enemy and says the queen will be very disappointed with her. Sizbel tries to explain that she's only here to protect her country from a traitor plotting against the queen. She needs Iska's help to do that, but Mask refuses to listen and reveals that he has recorded everything on a device. He then sends his goons after her, while Sizbel tries running away. At this moment, the object sent by the Empire shows up right in front of Sizbel. Iska sees the mechanical beast and immediately recognizes it as the Empire's droid soldier. He rushes to stop the machine, but Mask suddenly steps in and blocks his path. Acting like he's the final boss in a budget video game, Mask says there's no way he's letting Iska pass. Just then, Iska's team arrives, and Mismus immediately recognizes Mask as the creep who threw her into the vortex. As they engage in trash talk, the object starts scanning everyone for astral energy and quickly picks up on Mismus's power. But it's Sizbel who emits the strongest energy, so the machine locks onto her like a bloodhound on caffeine. Mask also orders his men to capture Sizbel, but before they can move, the machine decides the soldiers are in its way and casually wipes them out like crumbs on a dinner table. It then sends a massive energy blast towards Sizbel, but Iska slices it in half like a magician cutting his assistant out of a box. Nene then shows up, telling Iska she just needs a moment to ready her weapon. While she charges it up, Iska attacks the object relentlessly, but fails to cause any sort of damage. Soon after, Nene announces her weapon is ready and fires a powerful blast that seemingly destroys the object. On the other hand, Lord Mask catches up with Jin and injures one of his hands, but the latter pulls out a gun with his other hand and fires a shot. However, the bullet is intercepted by the recorder, which absorbs the impact and saves his life. The only upside is that the recorder, which contained evidence against Sizbel, is now toast. An enraged Mask then tries something dramatic and spreads gasoline barrels all over the area, ordering his men to burn them down. But their magic fails because Mismus's crest is generating wind and disrupting the flames. Mask realizes she must have awakened her powers in the vortex and decides she's now a perfect lab rat. As he moves toward her, Jin shoots him right in the head, shattering his mask. This forces the weirdo to bolt away from there, but not before vowing to come back for revenge. Meanwhile, the object suddenly comes to life and strips off its armor, charging up another blast. Iska realizes that the blast is light astral energy, which shocks him because it means there's an astral spirit inside the machine. Knowing they don't have time, Iska tells Nene to cover him while he grabs Sizbel and dodges the attack. Nene readies another weapon strike, but this time, the machine blocks it with a defensive shield. Iska then tells her to evacuate the others while he takes care of it alone. As the machine charges up again, Sizbel creates smoke with her ability to confuse it. Iska takes the chance and smashes its head, dropping the machine to the ground. But it doesn't end there, as astral energy begins to leak from the machine and grabs Sizbel, forming a massive new entity. A worried Iska launches several attacks, but to no avail. Just when it seems the machine is going to win, Alice makes a grand entrance and hits it with a snow attack. A shocked Iska asks what she's doing there, and Alice throws the question right back at him. She then uses her snow vine to trap the entity and clear a path for Iska. He charges forward, but the entity breaks free quite easily. Alice explains it's an astral spirit, and Iska realizes the Empire must have been trying to weaponize it. The spirit then launches an attack, and Alice manages to block it with her ice shield. But this sends the spirit off the edge, and it starts causing destruction everywhere, while blabbering in a strange language. Fed up with the chaos, the two decide to work together. Alice uses her ultimate skill, while Iska also awakens the best ability of his sword. Their combined attack slices through the spirit's energy and lands a direct hit, defeating the entity once and for all. As it turns to dust, Sizbel is finally released from its clutches. Meanwhile, the Senate learns that their witch-hunting weapon has been destroyed and immediately starts planning their next move like sore losers. Back at the city, Iska and Alice thank each other and she blushingly says she no longer wants to fight him. Suddenly, Sisbel wakes up and asks Alice if she knows Iska and what their relationship is. When Alice awkwardly denies knowing him, Sisbel confesses that she sees him as her dream prince. Upon hearing this, Alice becomes enraged, but she's forced to keep her mouth shut. Iska's teammates also arrive looking for him, and he takes this chance to run away. Elsewhere, Rija and Nameless learn that Iska destroyed the weapon with the witch's help. Nameless asks about the Emperor, and Rija guesses he's probably out enjoying herself. Meanwhile, Salinger is walking freely through the beautiful fields. He grumbles about being bored until he suddenly senses something. It's none other than the Emperor himself, who has something very important to share. Back at the palace, Lord Mask informs his niece, Kissing, that it's time to prepare for the Queen's election. Meanwhile, the Queen summons Elatir and questions if she was the one who leaked Sisbel's location. She also asks Elatir if she's truly her daughter and not an imposter. In response, Elatir lets out a sinister smile, hinting that the real drama has only just begun. On the other hand, Alice and Iska secretly meet again. She asks why they always meet like this, but he says he doesn't mind. Alice warns him to pretend not to know her whenever sovereignty people are around, to which Iska agrees. They then share a quiet moment before parting ways once more, returning to their respective worlds.